In the Arctic, a scientific expedition team just digs up a 40,000-year-old block of ice. Something seems to be frozen in the ice, and at first, the scientists think it's a mammoth. After they cut off the outer layer of the ice block, they finally see what's inside. It is a man who has been frozen for 40,000 years. According to his appearance, the Iceman was around 30 years old when he was frozen, and he is the first prehistoric human to be discovered. The scientists are excited. They decide to dissect the Iceman and then conduct an in-depth study. So they move the Iceman to the lab. To make the ice melt faster, they put some heating devices on the ice. Soon, the Iceman is thawed. After that, the scientists are going to conduct the autopsy. They take off the Iceman's clothes and remove his ancient belongings. Just then, something shocking happens. They find that the Iceman's cells are still alive. Not only that, they discover that the Iceman has strong brain waves. It indicates that this man who has been frozen for 40,000 years is still alive. This is definitely a significant scientific discovery, so they rush to rescue the Iceman. They first put an oxygen mask on the Iceman, and then gave him an injection of glucose. With the help of a defibrillator, the Iceman is waking up, and his body functions are gradually recovering. Looking at this 40,000-year-old man, everyone is filled with curiosity. The Iceman is very alarmed when he sees these people with surgical masks. He thinks they are a group of beasts he has never seen before. Stanley gets it. He quickly takes off his mask and hood, revealing his beard and hair. After the Iceman realizes that they are the same kind, he slowly calms down, while the doctor takes the opportunity to give him a sedative injection. Through medical examination, the scientists discover that the Iceman's cells can generate a special protein to resist the cold, which is the key to his survival. The scientists still want to dissect the Iceman for research, and once successful, they have a good chance of creating a medicine that gives people immortality. But Stanley disagrees. He believes that the Iceman has the same rights as all other people, and they should not hurt the Iceman. So the plan to dissect the Iceman is temporarily put on hold. Since the Iceman cannot adapt to modern society, the scientists place the Iceman in an artificial simulated environment for study. It works, and the Iceman thinks he's back in his world. He drills wood for fire, makes hunting tools, and catches wild hogs, just like he used to. On this day, while catching fish in a little pond, he accidentally pulls out a tap. He has no idea what it is, and looking at the shiny object, he hides it as if it is a treasure. Later, he climbs up the water hose, and at the end of it, he finds a door. He opens the door and sees the scientists again. Looking at the strangers in front of him, he realizes he is in a cage. He waves his arms and howls like crazy. He is completely out of control. The guard has to take out a tranquilizer gun and give him a shot. After waking up, the Iceman gets depressed since he already knows he's a prisoner. He is on a hunger strike, so Stanley decides to enter the cage and try to communicate with him. The Iceman immediately gets nervous. He waves his arms to signal Stanley to leave his territory. Stanley responds to him with a smile, only to be pushed to the ground. The Iceman lifts a rock and slams it down, but only to test Stanley. Right after that, the Iceman smells Stanley, checks his gender, and finally lets his guard down after determining that Stanley is his kind. Although they can't understand each other's language, they quickly become friends, and Stanley gives him the name Chad. After a while, he learns that the tattoo on Chad's chest is a bird called Beta. To further understand Chad, Stanley finds a linguist to help him learn Chad's language. As time passes, he gets to know Chad better and better. On this day, Stanley brings his colleague Dr. Diane to the cage and introduces her to Chad. Looking at the beautiful woman in front of him, Chad gets very excited and wants to check her gender right away. Thankfully, Stanley stops him. To show his love, Chad shares his dinner with Diane, telling her to eat it. To keep Chad from getting offended, Diane eats it straight away. Then she realized that what she just ate was a bug. Later, Chad takes out his precious faucet. He tries to use it to exchange Diane with Stanley, only to be rejected again. Chad looks a little sad after being rejected. It turns out that he is a married man, and Diane reminds him of his wife and 2 children. Just then, a helicopter appears out of nowhere, and Chad gets very emotional. He keeps shouting a name to the helicopter, Beta. He finally calms down after the helicopter leaves. Since then, Chad has stopped communicating with anyone. He draws many strange symbols on his body and seems to be preparing for an important ritual, which confuses Stanley. To find out what Chad is trying to do, Stanley finds the local Inuit. He learns that in ancient polar legends, there is a bird called Beta, a messenger of God, and Chad was probably mistaking the helicopter for Beta. Stanley believes that 40,000 years ago Chad's people all died in a sudden ice age. And Chad thought it was because they had offended the gods, so he hoped to find the gods and then sacrifice himself to redeem his people. However, he had an accident and had been sealed for 40,000 years. When he saw the helicopter he mistook it for Beta, so he hoped Beta would take him to the gods. Stanley sympathizes with Chad, who has lost his family, his tribe, and everything he knew. He is the loneliest man on Earth. He wants to give Chad his freedom back and let him follow his faith. With the help of his colleagues, Stanley escapes from the Arctic base with Chad. In the ice and snow, Chad walks toward the location he remembers. Suddenly, a crevasse opens up in front of Stanley, cutting him off from Chad. But Chad doesn't turn back, he continues moving forward and he knows what he is looking for. Finally, he sees Beta again, he is ecstatic. He grabs Beta's foot, thinking it is taking him to God, and when it reaches a certain altitude, he releases his grip. Instead of being sad, Stanley is happy for Chad as he realizes that Chad has fulfilled his wish from 40,000 years ago. Thanks for watching.